Hello YouTube audience. Today is April the 17th, 2021 and I've been waited for 4 months to repot this camellia Kanjiro I have, and I wired it about 4 months ago, and people adore this tree. They love this tree, and this is probably the most famous tree I have, although it is currently just a pre-bonsai. So today I'm going to take the leap of faith to put this tree into a bonsai pot, and the pot I've chosen for this purpose is this blue glaze pot with it's almost an oval pot, but it's with the flower petal edge, so these little edges. So it's a much wider pot than the original nursery pot it came with, but it's much shallower. So we may need to tease the soil out pretty good, and the roots of camellia is very sensitive. A lot of gardener would tell you to not disturb the root at all. Just put this out, take this out of the nursery pot and put it in the ground without touching the root at all. That's how sensitive this root is, from what I heard. But for bonsai, we would have to bite the bullet and tease out the old soil and try to untangle the roots so that it gradually developed a nice surface root base or nibari. So that's something that's inevitable, and so we would have to take the risk to do this. And I've waited for 4 months to repot it. I think it make through the winter fine, and hopefully, and now it's still dormant because I pruned it 4 months ago, so this year it didn't flower, which is expected. But at this time in early spring, late winter, is the time that camellia normally blossom, and when they're blossoming they are actually dormant, so which is the time to bear root and to repot. And so this is probably the correct time to repot, but it would be even better if I wait for 1 more year for the plant to fully recover from its first styling, and then repot. That would be even better. But I'm willing to take the risk here, and so that's what I will do. The soil I'm going to use for this, because camellia is a typical acid-loving plant, so I'm going to use an acidic bonsai soil, which is on the side here. So it's Kanuma. It's acidic soil, and mixed with some sphagnum moss here. This mix is based on the mix they use to grow Sasuke azalea in Japan. Sasuke azalea is also an acid-loving plant, so it's inspired by that mix. So because this is an acid-loving plant, I expect the root to be very fine, and Kanuma has the additional benefit of being very light, and fine roots can grow through it easily. So there is one drawback I'm having, which is these canuma are small particles. Judging by the size of this tree, it may be better to put it in larger particle soil, like mid-size or even large-size grain soil. But I think it would be fine for the first repotting. The smaller the grain, the better it holds water. So a small size, it's normally for shohin trees. But this is the soil I have right now, so I'm going to use it. So this is the preview of this tree before repotting, and I would like to do a 360 spin before I dig in and try to tease the soil out of the roots. Let's see. How am I going to do this? Okay. This room is a mess right now, but since it's the repotting season, I don't want to, every time I repot, I'm going to clean it. So I want to repot all the tree I have and then clean the room after that. So I'm trying to see if I can turn it. My hands, because I'm holding it doesn't work this way. I'm holding the camera, so I kind of don't have the long hand to turn it. So let's see if I can use a stick to turn it. It's a heavy tree, so okay. Let's do a 360. This would serve as a before look of the tree. It's a heavy tree right now, so it's difficult to turn even with the turntable. Okay. Okay, this is back to the front, and we have a 360 view of the tree. Now I'm going to turn on the time lapse and gently, very gently tease out the root. I would like to treat this as a pine tree, not like a deciduous tree, which in the correct time you can cut off most of the root. But a pine tree, even in the correct time, you cannot cut out too much root. So I will be very careful teasing out the old soil without breaking the old roots, and conservatively cut out small amount of root and try to jam the root into this pot. Okay, so I will see you in the time lapse. Okay, I would have to stop in the middle of the time-lapse video and take a close look on this root system in this camellia. If I could see the root system in the tree when I purchased it, I would definitely not purchase this tree. The more I dig into this root system, the more I think about what type of monster am I digging into. And this is the root system. I haven't cut a single root from the root system. So you can see, first of all, the root base is anything but a flat root base like what we desire in bonsai. This two major roots come out. Maybe this side would be easier to see. Two major roots come out, and then they merge into one gigantic tap root, and the tap root become a complete mess. Inside, I still cannot see what it looked like inside. It's like several roots completely entangled with each other, and we don't know where each root grow. So this is this root base. So of course we can use our air layering method, maybe just air layer above here and create a new tree from there, which would be a traditional tree, traditional twin trunk tree. But I have used that method once already. This is very bizarre root base, almost like someone's lower half of the body so it's so monstrous that I think I'm going to turn this into this tree's feature. I'm not going to shy away from the obvious defect, quote-unquote defect of the tree, but I'm going to show it. And simply see where the tree can grow from here. Let's see, this is probably my most well-known tree, but it's probably going to turn into my most controversial tree. But it's okay. I'm a hobbyist and I don't need to depend on other people's comment on my trees to make a living. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to actually feature these crazy root base and make it into the feature of this tree. And let me continue the time lapse and finish repot this tree and see where it leads to. Okay, I just finished repotting this camellia into a bonsai pot, and the whole tree is potted based on the root. So the top of the tree would need to be, probably the branches would need to be repositioned to adjust for that, but now it looks like this. The powerful, strange root base is highlighted instead of hidden. So let me try to see if I can turn this. Okay, I'm going to do it 360. You can see it's like two legs, the root base from the very front. This is the back of the tree, which could also be the front. Okay, so this is the 360 view of the tree. This is quite a exhausted repotting for me. I basically tease out all the old soil and wash the roots. I probably cut out half of the root. Most of them are very thick woody roots, although there are plenty of fine root attached to them. So the the root plane was horrible. Basically, it had two different root planes: the root plane near the surface and the root plane near the drainage hole on the bottom of the nursery container, which is, I found that typical because the nursery soil are normally too wet and not sufficient air get to the center of the container, so the root doesn't grow very well in the center, and root is not, we don't really have too much root either. So I probably cut off half of the roots, which could be too much for camellia, but let's see. I'm going to put it in shade for probably a month, and carefully water it, watch it, and hopefully it survive. So that's the number one thing about repotting. We always want the tree to survive first, not so much for it to look perfect. But I think this tree actually looked quite good, and it has a very unique root base, which I'm going to continue to think about how to make it unique in the future. Maybe I can put a rock under it, look like this tree is sitting on a rock, or further expose the root and basically like someone is kneeling. It could make I could make that happen too, but now it has several years of growth, it need to do. Basically, in next repotting, it would be several years later, I would like to see very, very healthy roots. I would like to see the roots filled this container, which is a lot. Currently, we don't even have probably maybe a fifth of this container filled. So I could even have used a smaller container, but before we dig the root system out, we would not know how much roots is in there. So sometimes it's difficult to make it perfect and exact, but I think I've done my best in this round of repotting. So let's take a look at a very unique root base. So this is the root base. You can see this is the walking root base, not the typical Japanese radiating root base at all. But I think this will make this tree unique. Sometimes we would try too hard to try to create a unique tree, to try to create a perfect tree, but sometimes a perfect tree is just too similar to each other, and it's not memorable. But sometimes a unique feature like this could make it even more memorable and more unique. This is what I did for this repotting of my Kanjiro camellia bonsai, since it's in a proper bonsai pot now, so I really can call it a bonsai. So I'm going to water the plant more and try to wash the fine in the soil out more, and otherwise this is the final look of this tree after the first repotting, or the first look of this bonsai. And I hope you enjoy this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.